Welcome, everyone. I am so glad to be here today on the third episode of Bookstack Coffee Chat. Thank you for joining me. I hope that you will take a moment to just mention where you're from if you're watching live, also the replays too. It's always fun to see where everyone is joining from. And also make sure that you can hear me. I did that new intro and it said it turned my mic off during the intro, so I'm hoping that it turned it back on after it was done playing. So hopefully all this technology works out. But welcome. So glad to see you and be back with you to talk about books, life, and faith. So this past week has been a whirlwind of activity for me, not only in reading, but also in my writing life. I received my proof copy of my revised edition of the one-year collection of weekly writing prompts, and I'm so excited. It will be available for purchase on Amazon the end of this week. So next week, I will be talking a little bit more about that and sharing that book with you. But today, I wanted to share about a couple of other books that I have been reading the past week. And I had a quick question for you. There's debate within the writing world as to whether or not to include introductions and prologues. So let me ask you, put in the comments, do you read introductions and prologues, or do you just jump right into the story? I'm curious. I'd love to hear. So whether you're watching the replay or not, just share with me. Just curious. I love little stats like that. And the reason I ask too is because I started to read a book called Sold on a Monday by Christina McMorris. Have any of you read this book? I'd be curious about that as well. So it's about, takes place back in 1931 after the Great Depression. So a lot of America is still reeling from the effects of that financial hardship. And a photographer for a local newspaper walks past a house and sees that there's a sign, 2 children for sale. And shows he interacts with 2 boys that live there. And I haven't gotten too far into the book, but it does offer a prologue. And I read it because I'm one who actually loves to read the little bits of backstory in the introduction. And then there's always a little bit of forward thinking in the prologue. And in this case, he's regretting something. And so I'm like, ooh, what is he regretting? So I'm glad that I read the prologue. But then once I got started into the book, there was some language. And I was so disappointed because I've seen all of the reviews about this book. I don't know if the kids, there we go. Sold on a Monday. And it gets such high reviews, so many 4 and 5 star reviews, and all the industry magazines rave about it. But I was like, okay, well, one word, and then another word, and then another word. So I've only gotten through, I think, chapter 3, and I don't know. I don't know if I have the heart to finish reading it or not. And it is a good storyline. It's a great storyline. It's just some of the language. Am I the only one that gets bothered by that? Let me know. So then I jumped to a different book. So I'm still debating whether I'm going to finish this one or not. But this one is called Tea and Treachery. So it's kind of like a cozy mystery, and it's by Vicki Delaney. And it's part of a series, maybe not a series. It says A Tea by the Sea Mystery. And I do like mysteries. And this one is about halfway through. I've got my little bookmark there about halfway through. And it's an entertaining read about a 30-ish age woman who is operating a tea shop, a tea room in Cape Cod. And she's helping her grandmother also run a bed and breakfast. And a developer comes in across the way and wants to raise the house next door and build a golf course and country club. And so grandma is a feisty one, and she is also one who speaks her mind without thinking, and so makes a couple of, just casual comments that could be taken as threats, and lo and behold, the developer, well, he is no longer. So now guess who is the prime suspect but 85-year-old grandma, right? So that's where I'm at now in this book, but it is entertaining. It goes, if you like English tea and that whole afternoon tea, goes into detail about that as well. And it's also interesting because her best friend is a writer. And so it's kind of funny, the little jabs and innuendos that are in there, but are true about writing a book. So I do encourage this book. Again, it's Tea and Treachery by Vicki Delaney. So I just see a couple of comments coming in here. So yeah, Dina says it sounds a bit like a Hallmark movie, this book. Yes, it kind of does. Right now, there isn't a lot of romance, though, although it's hinted at that something might be coming. So I'm looking forward to see if that happens. Yeah, and Dina says that she can relate to a good book ruined by inappropriate language. Oh, yeah. So that was another book that I had mentioned at the beginning. So, but it's interesting with the grandma because a part of me wants to be like her, just, spitfire, and she's 85 and she's still living on her own and she's getting around and doing all this stuff. But, our words can sometimes get us into trouble, right? Especially if we're not taking time to really think through what we say before we say it. And this morning, I was reading from the book of James, and in James chapter 1, verse 19, I'll read it for you. I'm reading from the King James Version. It says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God." And boy, can we see that in today's society, right? Just how much better it would be if we all took the time to listen and just thought before we spoke and acted in a lot of things. So as I've said before during this coffee chat, it's all about books and life and faith, and the best book of all, of course, is the Bible. And so I like to refer back to that as much as possible and incorporate that into this coffee chat as well as into my work. But going back to my initial question about prologues and introductions, feel free to put in there if Dina and Amy, I see you're on there too. If you like to read prologues and introductions, I'm doing an informal poll because, as I mentioned, I'm kind of a data junkie when it comes to the book industry. And I came across a few stats this week as well that I thought I'd share. For those of us who are readers, how many of us have bought a book this past month or plan to buy a book this month, right, for ourselves? I'm guessing a lot of us have, hoping a lot of you have. I know for a fact, according to Publishers Weekly, they said that in the first week of November, so the first week of this month, the unit sales of print books rose 2.2% over the previous week. And that doesn't sound like a large percentage. But then whenever you dive into the actual numbers of how many books are sold, I thought it was fascinating. According to NDP Group, October alone, so last month, there were 558 million books purchased, worth $9.6 billion in MSRP value. So, wow, that is a lot of books. So I'd be curious to know how many books that you've bought or you plan to buy. I know I plan to give a few books as Christmas gifts. And of course, I'm always looking for my own library shelves as well. Yeah, so Dina's asking, can you ask the question again? I jumped on late. So the question was if you read prologues or introductions when you get a book that has them. I love the backstory of those, so I always read them. But in the writing world, writers are always debating: should I include it? Should I not include it? Is it worth taking the time to write it if no one's going to read it? So I'm just curious to know if others do read it or if it's just me. So yeah, today, like I said, I just wanted to share a little bit about that mystery book. So if you like mysteries, I recommend that one. The history, I do like the concept of Sold on a Monday, and I have several other historical books coming down the pike that I'm reading, that also writing, that I'll be sharing more about in coming weeks. So if you like those, let me know. Yes, Amy Mathis says the cold weather makes people want to read more. I agree. I woke up this morning and was so cold. Actually had 3 blankets on the bed last night to stay warm. So, and I'm in North Carolina, which isn't the coldest place on earth either. So yeah, I definitely love to snuggle up under a blanket and read. I did that last night as well. Good question. Dina asked, what's the difference between a prologue and an introduction? So an introduction is written from the author, sometimes by a guest, like an expert or someone not known in the writing world, but it introduces the book. Why? Typically it's by the author, why you wrote the book, the background behind it. It's different from acknowledgments, which thanks everybody that's had a process in writing it. But the introduction is basically your reason for writing the book. Whereas the prologue is actually a part of the book. It gives a little bit of insight or forewarning or foreboding, or leaves you wondering what's going to happen in the book. For example, for this book, Sold on a Monday, the prologue takes place in a jail, and he's regretting something. So you're like, why is he in jail? What did he do that he's regretting? So if you hadn't read the prologue, you might not be that curious as to what's going to happen in the book. So those are the main differences. But yeah, so any other questions that you guys have, I welcome to answer them. I am available not only here on the coffee chat, but I am pop in here on my author page frequently. Be happy to answer any questions. Reach out to me. You can message me. I also have a website where you can learn more about the books that I offer and help people to write. That's lastinglegacies.net. That's LASTING-net. So actually, you know what? I think if I can figure out this technology, I might be able to put it up on the screen, because that's one of the cool features that if I can just remember to do it, just type it in here quick. Lasting. I can spell. All right. There we go. So that's my website. You can learn more about me there. And if you are a writer yourself and want to get plugged in with other writers, get writing tips, encouragement, share ideas, ask questions, I encourage you to go over to my Facebook group. It's a private group, Ink and Impact, and you can just search for that within Facebook. Welcome you with open arms. Always love to help other writers connect and get their works written. Yeah, so all of that's available to you. I look forward to seeing you again next week. I do plan to still do it. I know it's Thanksgiving. Can you believe it? It's already Thanksgiving. But I do plan to pop in. I don't have huge plans. I'll hopefully have the turkey in the oven by then. Before we gear up for an afternoon meal. And if you feel like hanging out, I'd welcome you to join me. You're also always welcome to watch the replays. Amy's asking, have you read the North Carolina novel Where the Crawdads Sing? It has mystery in it. I have not read that one yet. It's on my to-read list, one of the many books. Thank you for bringing that one up. I do want to put that kind of toward the top of my list. I hope maybe that you've read it, and let me know if you liked it, Amy. So, all right. Well, I always try to kind of keep these short and sweet, but I also want to bring value and talk about things that interest you. So if there's anything that you would like to talk about in the future, let me know. Like I said, you can message me or reach out to me in those other ways that I shared. And I hope that you have a blessed week. Bye. Thanks for joining.